Hey, everybody. Welcome back once again to the Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast here on the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. I'm your host, Gene Jackson, and join me in welcoming back my co-hosts, the final bosses of P3 Radio, Josh Briley and Richard Mullican. Guys, how are we doing today?
I wanted to do the, hey, it's me, Richard Mullican. BT loves Josh more than me, I'm here, man. It was a rough week last week. Had some stuff going on with a buddy and got a big couple weeks coming up. So I'm just glad to be here today.
Well, we're glad to have you. We always have a good time when BT's here, but we always miss when you're not here as well. So it's good to have you back. Josh, how are things in Josh's world?
Absolutely lovely, Gene, man. I haven't been as busy as Richard Lee, but I've been lumberjacking and quarterbacking, dude. It's been fun.
Lumberjacking.
All right.
I literally cut a tree down this week, man.
Okay. All right. I didn't know if that was some. I didn't know if you meant to add it to the end of it. Like I've been lumberjacking it all weekend.
That's when you pull it in a sewing.
No, it's not what you think. I know what you would think.
You're wearing a flannel shirt and holding a roll of bounty paper towels.
I'm gonna be known as Big Josh Briley now.
That's his new gimmick now. Well, I'll add that to the intro from now on.
Hold it like an axe handle,
You'll have to lead two grizzly bears in there one week when we're doing this.
That could have been so bad.
Oh, Matt Bourne. All right. Well, we're going to get right into it today. Dave and Corey let us know that the Moondogs will be here, along with the Native American Tatanka, Tommy Wildfire Rich, the fabulous one, Jeff Jarrett in there, plus the King, Jerry Lawler, is going to be here as well. So we go take our quick break like we always do. And when we return, Dave Brown pitches it to a promo from Vince McMahon. And if you're listening to the audio version, if you're not watching the video version, please check out the video cast. It's fun, but especially check out this because I feel like this is one promo of all the promos we're ever going to play on this podcast. This is one that it helps to have the visual, and we'll talk about why on the other side.
Well. How about that? Vince McMahon, voice of the World Wrestling Federation, is bestowed yet another honor. There have been so many. But none any more than the honor that was bestowed upon me last Monday night. Now, for the benefit of those of you in the Memphis area that don't know what that honor was, well, you see, what happened was that... you don't know what happened? You don't know what this is? Why, the last time you saw this belt, it was around the waist of of your king. It was around the waist of Jerry Lawler. But it's no longer around the waist of Jerry Lawler. Get a good look at it. And by the way, don't you think this belt looks much better around my slivet waist than it does around the rather rotund midsection of Jerry Lawler? But it looked best around the waist of Tatanka, the Native American that walked into Memphis Monday night undefeated and walked out of the ring undefeated and with the United Championship. And what are you going to do about it, Jerry Lawler? Nothing. You're not going to do one thing about it. I mean, Vince McMahon, right here, with this in my hands, Jerry Lawler, your championship belt. Yeah, it's yours. That's right. You can get close up of it. See that? That's right. It's Jerry Lawler's, or I should say, it used to be Jerry Lawler's. So. No longer. And Mr. Lawler, I'd like to remind you that this Monday night, in the rematch with Tatanka, you've got one shot, and one shot only, to regain it. And we're gracious enough to give you that. You think you're going to win? Well, let me just say that in history, there was something known as Custer's Last Stand this Monday night. Jerry Lawler, it's your last stand.
I'll never forget in 1993 the feeling of seeing Vince McMahon wearing the USWA Unified World Title on Memphis TV. And honestly, it stood out to me even more back then because not only were you seeing Vince McMahon wearing the USWA title, but you're seeing Vince McMahon wearing what was at one time the AWA World Title. And keep in mind, in those days, the WWF never acknowledged other wrestling promotions. So throughout my fandom from, starting in about 85 up to this point in 93, Vince McMahon didn't even acknowledge other promotions exist, much less to see him on someone else's TV wearing their belt. Felt pretty surreal at the time. How did you guys feel about it now? And I don't know if you saw it back then, but I did, but kind of take us through how this made you feel. I don't know. This stood out for me for, one reason or another.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of surreal to see it because, he always gets they always give him the credit in the new WWE history, where it's rewritten now it's a little different, but back then where it was rewritten every week, to where, there are no other companies there. There's Vince wasn't a heel until he did his thing with Brett and Brett screwed Brett. It's always forgotten that he did this in Memphis. But I know in the process of watching this, when I was watching it the other day, the thing that stood out to me was how many announcers in the past couple of years, or even before that, were probably looking at this video going, he said belt. He said belt. He broke his own rule, because that's what stood out to me. I was like, he's saying a lot of things that he did, despised towards the end, but no, it was shocking. It was right up there with everything else that you would see in wrestling that would shock you, to see Vince out there being heelish, wearing the belt. It was probably one of the top things on this show was to see that.
Yeah, the AWA had, went out of business. I've got some tapes that say AWA 1991 on it, but I don't think that was, I think that was little bullshit that people were running, spot show type things, or something somebody tried to keep going. But I think the Vern Gagne AWA ended sometime in
1990. It was officially dead. It really was dead in the water pretty much from late 88 through 89, but it continued to exist in some manner and into 1990. But by 91, no, those were just shows being ran in this manner.
So, but what I'm getting at is this is September 1993. So, just a couple years technically removed from AWA being a thing. That I knew all that as a kid, I remembered all of that happening, and it was surreal back then because that's the AWA title. I knew that's what that belt was, and it was just really, really odd back then seeing Vince wearing it, much less the behavior. Yeah. And this is textbook Mr. McMahon behavior. Looking back, I almost view this as the birth. The true birth, because he tap danced into being a heel on the last few promos, and he was almost full on, I guess, last week or the last one he sent in. But I feel like his actions during this promo was just over the top.
Can I use this second to throw out a message to our younger viewers that might not be familiar with tapes, as Josh said just a minute ago? If you find a VHS tape that says something that didn't happen, AWA 91, or in my case, I had one that said SummerSlam 32, don't watch that tape, because you're going to find out really quickly what your dad was into as far as fantasy, or you might even see your dad on there. So I just know that's the way that some guys label their stuff. So AWA 91 might have been code for something else. You know what I mean?
No, it was legit wrestling, but it wasn't Vern Gagne.
It was wrestling. It was just everybody's naked.
That's a great public service announcement there, Richard, because I used to have like out in the shed behind our house, we had a bunch of old VHS tapes, and we left them back there, and we were getting ready to move, and we lived across the street from my father-in-law. And as we were moving, he knew we weren't going to take all those VHS tapes. We were moving to Kentucky from the job at the time. And he's like, I moved all those VHS tapes. And I put them over in my shop behind the house. He's like, I got one of those TV VCR combos back there, so I can check out some of that wrestling, And so to this day, that was almost 10 years ago now. And to this day, he's like, I want to watch them random wrestling tapes. I'm like, well, one day you're going to hit the jackpot. Great American Bash
64.
Have fun, knock yourself out, so to speak. So
Great American
anyway, very, very timely warning there, Richard.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, kids don't have tapes. Everything's labeled properly in digital, Gene.
Yeah.
So we got the children are our future, and if we can save one scarred kid, we'll save one potential stripper or counseling victim.
Yeah, they won't be triggered, as they say these days.
Right.
So we come out of that segment, and we see a clip of the dog catchers regaining the USWA tag team titles from the Moondogs, saving what remains of the hair on Paul Neighbor's head. Then we see Richard Lee and the Moondogs come out for a promo, but first we go to a pre-recorded promo from former referee Paul Neighbors, who brags about winning the tag team titles as he has them draped over his shoulders, and he mocks Jerry Lawler for losing the unified title as well. Then we cut back to Richard Lee, who apparently, once again, somebody has gone in a time machine and let our complaints be heard, because after weeks of this, now Richard Lee is telling us that he's the one that tried to tame his dogs, but no more. From now on, they are back and they're showing no mercy. So now it's apparently going to be the Cobra Kai Moondogs. They're going to be swinging chairs, sweeping legs, and there's going to be no mercy, brother. And then they go to the ring. For the first match of the show today, it's going to be the Moondogs, Spike and Cujo, taking on the Intruders, number 1 and number 2, who I'm pretty sure they just beat up a couple weeks ago. The first time I think we ever seen the dog catchers, they were wrestling the Intruders, but they're trying their best to convince us that they're Moondogs of old. They're swinging chairs. They're throwing the Intruders over the announce desk. They're doing everything they can to be the old Moondogs, and frankly, I can't speak for you guys, but I just honestly still don't care.
Yeah, don't. I was expecting something different. They're like, "Hey, we got the Moondogs are different now." It's like one of them do a moonsault or some shit. But
the moonsault dogs.
But nothing was different. They did the exact same thing, and I'll guarantee you, if somebody brought a net out there, they'd freak out. So yeah, I mean, I'm like you. I'm bored by the Moondogs. The Moondogs need to go away for a little while.
Yeah, I've kind of got the battered wife syndrome with this whole deal, man. Like you can't be one way in the beginning of the relationship, and then everything goes south, and you're neutered, and you ain't, basically the good ethical Moondogs, and then all of a sudden be like, no, I'm changed. I'm going back to the way I was. No, it's too late. I'm done.
I mean, bring in a lucha Moondog or something. Let's change it up, like Richard said. We don't even have Spot, who is the anchor of the Moondog team. We've got Spike and Cujo, but it's what we've got. So we're not gonna spend a lot of time on this episode beating this same dead horse that I know some people are tired of us beating on. But hey, when they quit beating us over the head with the Moondogs, we'll quit beating the Moondogs over the head with their lethargic, I should say. But anyway, after the next break, we return to footage of last week's USWA heavyweight title match between the fabulous one, Jeff Jarrett, and Tommy Wildfire Rich. Tommy knocks down referee TD Steele by accident. And then he pulls out a chain to use on Jarrett. Jeff ends up stopping him, and I think he gets the chain from Rich, I believe it was. Anyway, Jarrett manages to pin Tommy Rich, but TD Steele, who had just been knocked down, was on his back, not facing them when he made the count.
That's why I'm chuckling, Gene. I laughed so hard watching this back. I was like, that man was on his back counting the pin, and he rung for the bell. Like that's a first for me. I've never seen that.
He rolled over like a guy who was sleeping on his stomach, who's rolling over to slap the alarm clock off the nightstand and manages to make a 3 count. And so, not surprisingly, Paul Neighbors was able to convince TD Steele, hey, you weren't looking, but Tommy had his feet on the ropes. So, of course, TD Steele takes his word for it. We restart the match. Tommy immediately reaches into his trunks, pulls out another chain, punches Jarrett, covers Jarrett, who gets his feet on the ropes, but Paul Neighbors pushes his foot off the ropes, and Tommy Rich is now our brand new USWA heavyweight champion. And then we get a promo. We're actually going to check some of this out. There's a couple of lines in here that got me. There's a shot of Tommy. He's got his robe on this week. He's ready.
I love that robe, man. He didn't wear that one very much, did he?
Kind of like the belt was on fire there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it needed to be. I'm sure when he won, he's like, what the hell is what y'all do with the old belt? But let's listen to Tommy, and we'll talk a little more about him and the belt on the other side.
Up maybe far too much in the results of these matches. I think the answer just might very well be Paul Neighbors. Heavyweight title holder. Well, here he comes right here with a little assistance, I think, though, but he's got the belt around his waist. Wildfire, Tommy Rich.
You can't talk about styling and profiling, baby. I beat Harley Race for the World Heavyweight title. NWA, the Briscoes, I beat them, and these crackers sitting over here. I don't need you hollering, go Wildfire, go. Jeff Jarrett needs your help.
Well, you can't be that proud about the way you won that belt. That's all I got to say.
What do you mean the way I won it? I beat him 1, 2, 3. I am the champion, right or wrong.
Yeah, you have the belt. There's no doubt about that.
I am the champion.
Okay, you have the belt, and I guess for the...
I'm going to go back in a little history on you, Dave. Miss Christine. Hey, let me tell you something, boy. I don't need you hollering for me.
Let's don't start.
Anyway, Miss Christine, let's get into the family. Eddie Marlin, the grandpappy. Ain't nobody gonna save your tail no more. Your daddy, he never wrestled no men like I wrestled.
Oh, come on, don't start that family.
Who has Jerry Jarrett ever beat?
Yeah, he was one of the
Who did he ever beat?
He was one of the great tag team members in the USWA years ago. He and Tojo Yamamoto were champions here.
Yeah, that's because Tojo Yamamoto carried his tail. I'm talking about one-on-one competition.
Oh, look out, here comes Jeff. Holding him back there.
Who did Eddie Marlin have? Hey, who'd your grandpappy ever beat? You can't beat nobody, boy.
All right, watch it. Jeff trying to get to Tommy Rich. I suppose the interview is ended. Tommy does have a match scheduled here. He's headed up in the ring. Jeff Jarrett wants to get into the ring, too. They're not turning him loose. Frank Morrell is sending him out of here, saying, we're not having a non-sanctioned match. We've got one sanctioned. But I don't know what exactly Rich said. TD Steele.
Wildfire was on fire this week, man. That's those heated promo yet. He doesn't need those crackers cheering for him.
Yeah, and thank God Frank Morrell was there to keep Jeff Jarrett back. You got 3 of the most muscular guys in the company standing by, and Frank Morrell's like, yep, I got you.
Yeah, old No Neck has got things under control. But, yeah, I mean, it was a fun promo. Once again, like you pointed out last week, Josh, he's making it personal. He's taking shots at Jeff's family. He mentions his daddy. He mentions his grandpappy. He even invoked the name of Christine Jarrett, Jeff's grandmother. What I find funniest about each time he does this is Dave Brown seems to get heated up pretty quick because as soon as he starts into the family, Tom, he's like telling Tommy, "Don't start all that stuff," kind of like Lance used to do. And
it kind of makes it uncomfortable in a way where Tommy almost like puts a stop on it immediately. He's like, "No, tell me, Dave, who did you ever beat? Who did Grandpappy ever beat?" No, I was like, "Holy shit!" Like it feels real. Because and they keep on and keep on and keep on. Like I was thinking back watching all this. We see it over and over. This is the second week in a row where it's just been the crowd is having to stop Jeff Jarrett. But think back at least 2 months ago where we didn't have any feuds like this, where it was a constant. Like I like it. They're trying to build and make it into something.
Yeah, I mean, they've got some heat here, but it's not just about the title. Tommy, like you say, he's taking shots. He's I love how adamant he was about who did Jarrett ever beat? Who did he ever beat? And if you notice, Dave Brown never was able to name anybody Jarrett ever beat.
I told you.
I think he got a DQ win over a guy once. like hard pressed. He's thinking,
Because Tojo had to carry his tail. But yeah, so it was a good promo, and this time the baby faces managed to hold on to Jeff Jarrett so he couldn't come flying into the frame like they've been doing to each other the last couple of weeks. So after that, we got match number 2, the USWA champion Tommy Wildfire Rich, who's feeling generous today and says that he's going to put the title on the line this morning against Mr. Bill Vick. Now, Dave and Corey are trying to convince us that Tommy could be making a mistake, that sometimes these types of arrogant announcements that you're putting a title on the line can backfire. But one look at Bill Vick, and that he couldn't pin Tommy's shoulders down for 1, 2, 3 if he gave him a shotgun. I mean, it's a typical squash, aside from one little weird exchange where the guy managed to get an awkward roll up on Tommy, and I mean, Tommy's shoulders were down. I don't know what the hell was happening. Apparently, TD still didn't either because they didn't even try to count. Like, Tommy's shoulders were down for a couple seconds, and TD didn't count. I was like, what the hell is happening right now? The way they rolled into it was completely odd, but it didn't matter. Tommy went back to beating on this Vic guy. Eventually, he hits an illegal pile driver behind the referee's back, gets the win, and here comes Jeff Jarrett again trying to come out, but the baby faces have him well in hand. They don't let him come out, and we managed to not have another wild brawl like what we had out here last week. Any final thoughts on that match before we move on?
It seemed like it was an extended beating, just like to try to make Tommy look the most heelish that he could. And it drew sympathy out of me. I was like, God, this guy is never going to come back to do a job again. He's going to tell Eddie Marlin, you can go fuck yourself. I'll go work for Bert in a tent somewhere.
Yeah. He got there that day and he's like, well, listen, Eddie, this is what's going on. This is my first day, but I'm going to need some extended time off after this because I got stuff to do. And they were like, well, why don't you just go out there with Tommy? We got you getting beat up from segment 1 to segment 7.
I'm going to need a few bucks for this, Jerry. What if we made it a title match? We'll give you a title match in your debut. Oh, hell yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Vic gets a title match. It doesn't go his way. So, let's take our first podcast commercial break real quick. And when we come back, we're going to hear and see what led to Vince McMahon wearing the unified title.
Hey guys, Ray Russell here, curator of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, inviting you guys to listen to many of the programs here as part of the WrestleCopia brand, including, but not limited to, the Wrestling Memory Grenade, currently covering the 1988 and the WWF project. You can also listen to the Regional Wrestling Podcast, where we talk the territories. You can also listen to the Wrestling Stoop with the legend himself, Bob Roop. But that's not all. You can also check out the Puro Wrestling Academy with the professor of Puroresu, Mr. Dan Ginnity. Dan and I go back in time and cover the history of Japanese professional wrestling in the English language. And you can listen to all of those shows and more, all part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, located over at WrestleCopia.com. That's WrestleCopia.com, and anywhere your podcast streaming needs are met. So if you're looking to support that next up-and-coming podcast brand, please consider making it WrestleCopia.
Hey, it's Bob Smith, and guess what? The Outdated Wrestling Hour is now part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. But hey, no fear, you're still going to hear the unique guests, comedy, music, authors, journalists, funny people. Who knows who's going to end up on the Outdated Wrestling Hour? Remember, it's all new and all old. So check it out in the WrestleCopia Podcast Network and wherever you get your podcasts. Listen if you know what's good for you.
All right, we're back now. That has now joined our collection of favorite commercial bumpers, along with the Miss Simpson one and a couple of others.
on our side,
awkward fireball ever.
On our side, we were sitting there doing we were adding Foley work to it because Josh and I were going, the whole time.
I ain't gonna be able to referee now.
That's watch that ponytail now. That's my dungeon keeping hand.
You singed my ponytail, I am gonna whoop your ass.
That's why he was so like he wouldn't sell it too good, because obviously he was locked down, but he was worried he dropped his ring of keys.
I get down to that dungeon, I'm screwed.
Yeah, I gotta call a locksmith to get the dungeon back open because I lost my keys.
I ain't disposed of that last girl that's down there. So at this point, we see some highlights of the end of the trail match from last week between Lawler and Tatanka. So let's find out how the Native American managed to stay undefeated while winning the USWA Unified title. The same belt that Bret Hart couldn't manage to win, the Giant Gonzalez couldn't manage to win. But by God, Tatanka got it done, and this is how.
Tatanka will be asking for the Unified World title. Says you might as well hand it to me now. I don't know about that. You don't cut the king out this early. Oh, he slams Lawler down hard, though. 14-minute fast. And the Native American, a little momentum in the ring. Dances around, jumps off the rope. And a chop on Lawler. Takes him down. Also ropes again with another chop goes to Tatanka. Again Tatanka sends the king down. Another chop for Lawler. Stands up. Tatanka chopping away on the king. And Jerry Lawler pulls the strap down. Boy, Tatanka will probably do some dancing now to get away from Lawler. Right hand from the king. Sends Tatanka down, and as fast as he gets up, Lawler puts him back down. The Native American being nailed by Cherry, the King Lawler. DDT from the king. Boy, Tatanka is out. Hey, but Paul Neighbors out here. Paul distracted, I believe, Frank Morrell. Paul should have enough. He's already wearing a neck brace. But Mosley doesn't. Tatanka kicks Lawler. Oh, boy. Paul drives the king. Hey, look at that. Frank Morrell holds up a nose Neighbors. Tatanka covers. Gets the 1, 2, 3. And we've got a new unified world champion, the Native American Tatanka. He'll get the win in 15:32 over Jerry Lawler. And Tatanka is the new unified world heavyweight champion.
There we see it. Tatanka proves to Terry Taylor that a character with a big red streak in the middle of his hair can be successful if booked correctly.
I love
once
how
again, go ahead.
in the middle of the match you got the zoomies. You know, like a crazy dog that runs around, you know, after it goes outside or gets a drink of water.
I'm gonna win that belt.
play.
I'm gonna win that belt.
Hey, Corey even made fun of him. He'll do some dancing when Lawler does this to him in there. So, yeah, once again, former referee Paul Neighbors gets involved. He distracts referee Frank Morrell, which allowed Tatanka to hit Jerry Lawler with an illegal pile driver. And I'm guessing that was probably the first pile driver Tatanka's ever executed, and it wasn't bad, honestly. So he gets the pile driver. He gets the pin. He's the new unified world heavyweight champion. And, we talked about that being his first pile driver, and I'm sure that led into what I imagine was probably his first heel promo on television anywhere. It wasn't terrible unless you count the part where he said, Jerry King, and then tried to correct by saying, Jerry the Lawler King. But other than that, he seems somewhat comfortable. Let's take a listen to some of this because I want to hear Tatanka. And I want to get a little bit of the interaction as Tommy Rich joins Tatanka out there along with Lawler.
First of all, I want all these people to shut up. Here I got it. Let me have this mic. First of all, I got to come to Memphis, Tennessee. No wonder the big city people hate these little small country towns. By taking a look at all of you, you're so stupid and so ignorant. No wonder you think Jerry the Lawler is the real king here in Memphis. He's not a real king. You see who the real king is right now.
Well, I got a little idea because, I've sort of, I know a little bit about the World Wrestling Federation. They have these big pay-per-view events, and they've got one that's coming up pretty soon, sometime like right before Thanksgiving, don't they? What's their next big pay-per-view event? What is it going to be?
Survivor Series.
Oh, Survivor Series. Are you going to be in Survivor Series?
Of course I'm going to be in Survivor Series.
How does that work exactly? Now, is that they get some tag teams, like 4 men on a team and try to eliminate somebody else? Is that right?
You get 4 men on a team and you just destroy the other 4. And I already know who my partners are. I got the best team. I would tell these people here who are going to be facing, but you people are so stupid and ignorant, you don't even deserve to hear it.
Well, I'll tell you what. For all of us little local yokels down here and us stupid, ignorant people here in Memphis, I had an idea that possibly maybe we could have our own little Survivor Series. Now, I know it won't be as big and as impressive as they have up in the World Wrestling Federation, but I had an idea for our own little Survivor Series right here in Memphis. Now, I'll tell you what. Listen, you just tell me what you think now. I had sort of envisioned a couple of teams. Now, you have team captains. Of course, you would naturally be a captain because you're Tatanka from the World Wrestling Federation.
Tatanka's undefeated team, of course.
You would all be champions. You'd be that's the undefeated team, isn't it?
Of course, undefeated.
Okay.
Of course.
So I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll call that's Tatanka's champions. I'll call my team Lawler's Losers. How about that?
Hey, look. Hey. I have to give it to you. You picked a good name for your team. Lawler's Lose.
Okay.
That's what we did.
This ain't Tatanka. This is a chief, man. This is Lawler, you gotta be. Shut up. Lawler's got to be the stupidest person I've ever seen. Hey, after he gets through with you, I don't know which one. We'll beat the Bulldogs first. But then we got to flip a coin to see whether we keep him last or Jeff Jarrett, because I want a piece of Jeff Jarrett, too.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds great to me, King, but I think it compares to any WWF match they've ever had, to be honest, because I still want some of you, buddy.
That sounds great.
So it's signed, sealed, and delivered. Is that right?
Well, okay, you guys have agreed.
You're stupid as these people over here.
Come on now. I can't make the match. You can't make the match. We'll have to check with Eddie Marlin.
All right. I'll call Eddie Marlin myself.
Come on.
As far as we're concerned, though, we've got our own little Survivor Series this Monday night, right?
Down to the chief day, bro.
We got to get it sanctioned. He's got to check on it. Let's do that.
This is a real Indian here, brother.
That's the line that gets me every time. This is a real Indian here, brother.
Why was Jerry wearing a blouse? Can I ask that question?
I don't know. I guess he didn't get a free SummerSlam T-shirt at that pay-per-view. He'd be wearing it every week like he did his King of the Ring shirt. So I guess he got gypped.
We had so much fun watching this back. We critiqued King's uniform like really hard. I was like, if somebody broke into King's house and went through his drawers, they'd assume that like a weightlifter lived there or something. There's like, man, this dude has to be jacked. All his necks are cut out of his shirt. No, it's like he looks just like a woman that would sell you candles at a flea market or something.
So long before Roman Reigns became the tribal chief, Tommy Rich deemed Tatanka the chief here in USWA in 1993. I don't know. This is something very fun to me to see Tommy Rich out here with his arm around WWF superstar Tatanka, and Tatanka trying to. I mean, it's like he studied every generic heel promo from the 80s he'd ever seen before he went up there. These people are too stupid and ignorant to hear what I have to say. Like, just
did he not sound a little bit like Bam Bam Bigelow too? Like his voice.
Yeah, he went from being like, what is he, like a Native American from North Carolina to like he suddenly had a Jersey accent at times in this.
But you know, like this would also be our first peek at heel Tatanka, which would eventually he would do after getting bought out, I guess, by the $1 Million Man. But I mean, like as cheesy as some of the lines were, he seemed extremely comfortable. Like you could tell the look on his face, you know, where some people like when they do a heel turn, you can tell they're not totally comfortable. Well, by the look on their face, and they're kind of tight-assed about it. Yeah. He was totally loose. He looked totally comfortable. He just may have been nervous about what to say, but like I was convinced he was total heel at this point.
Yeah. And he's the only heel that could come out with a tomahawk and no one bat an eye, apparently.
That's why Dave handed that mic right over.
Yeah. He was like, take it, pal. But I was laughing watching this because I was like, if they were a tag team, what would they be called? Him and Tommy. And I was like, the only logical solution would be, did somebody say something about firewater?
Yeah. I mean, it seemed like perhaps being a heel was Tatanka's natural personality. Like you pointed out there, it seemed to come natural to him. Like the verbiage isn't there yet. And you know, that turn by Tatanka is kind of underrated because it was another one of these turns by the WWF that I don't think anybody called. They had, you know, Luger had been back and forth so much in his career. And at that point in the WWF, he'd come in as a heel. Then he became a babyface strictly because he body slammed Yokozuna and wore a flag shirt. And so when DiBiase is implying that Luger has sold out, everybody's like, well, of course Luger sold out. That's what Luger does. Yeah. I mean, because the Native American superstar he's not selling out. There's no way. So you did not see that turn coming. I think it's one that people don't really talk about much because it, you know, was kind of an afterthought of a feud. But I thought it was a really cool way to get into Tatanka being a heel. And he never really, with him being with DiBiase, he didn't get a chance to talk a whole lot as heel Tatanka in the WWF. So I feel like if he would have stuck around here, if they'd have, you know, used him more in Memphis, he probably could have developed into a really good heel because he like, you know, Josh was saying, he looked like he felt comfortable in this role. He just was struggling with, like I said, you know, you're too stupid and too ignorant and, you know, all that kind of crap. But I don't know. That's a go-to in you know, Memphis wrestling heel verbiage. So nothing terribly wrong there. But I thought this segment was a lot of fun. So we've got our own little broke-ass Survivor Series coming Monday night as we're getting ready for the big one in a couple of months in WWF.
My problem with that was, and I, you know, watching it then, I was thinking the same thing as I do now, watching it back. I was like, we are so far away from Survivor Series right now. They're not even advertising it on WWF television at this point. So, I mean, I know why Lawler, or I assume Lawler was doing this and making it happen because Vince, you know, Vince was okay with doing their little Survivor Series here because it was so far away from the real one. But, you know, there's no chance he's doing this in November in Memphis.
No. And I felt like, because it's so convoluted. Because it's like, well, all right, well, you got your team of guys who all won belts Monday night, and we're the losers. We're going to be called Lawler's losers, which I thought was, that's cute. It's Tatanka, that's a good name for you. That's where he got that jersey on him again. It's a good name for your team over there, But
forget about it. I'm Tatanka.
Hey, it's a bunch of fucking losers. What are you saying? So then Lawler starts in with like, all right, well then, we can put everybody's belts on the line. And if I pin you, I win that belt. And if Jeff pins him, he wins that belt. And if they pin a dog catcher, then they'll be. I'm like, okay, we're doing the WWF Survivor Series concept, but we've never tried to put belts on the line in WWF. Like, this is going to get. So what happens if Jeff pins Tatanka? What happens if Lawler pins dog catcher number 2? Well, which combination of you are the tag team champions? So there's a lot of questions to be had there. And honestly, my first thought when they started setting this up is, okay, this is a way to have Tatanka lose a match without pinning him and losing his undefeated streak. So we'll see if that's how this plays out. But I assume that's kind of was the point to all this. But we'll find out. Go ahead.
I was going to say, do we know that, like, maybe Vince, so anyways, like the XFL or UFL, it's a football league. They tried out a new kickoff thing because the NFL wanted to see how it would work. Do we know that Vince didn't say, hey, we're playing with some ideas with Survivor Series where a belt might be on the line. Can y'all try it out there and see how it works there? If the people buy it, if it's not too convoluted. Could this be something that was passed down like as a favor? Like, hey, you got our guy. Could you try to do this, or do we think that it was just strictly we don't want him to lose clean, so got to get the belt off of him?
I mean, that's always a possibility. Yeah. If that's what it was, then clearly they didn't like the result. They never did it.
Right.
There was never a title on the line in a Survivor Series match before or after this.
Right.
So, but that's always a possibility. I just think there's too many variables there but I mean, then again, that also could be fun. Like, back in like 87 and 88, when Honky Tonk Man had held the Intercontinental title forever and a day, and he was walking out on matches and stuff like that, you could have put, all right, if anybody on the opposing team pins the Honky Tonk Man in this match, they'll be the new Intercontinental Champion. Of course, he would have got disqualified or counted out or something, but at least would have added a little extra stakes to the match, and also would have managed to, because in those initial years there were never title matches at Survivor Series because all the matches were those multi-man elimination matches. Right. It wasn't until like I think 92 or maybe 91 before they lumped a title match. I think maybe it was 91 whenever Taker beat Hogan, or when he tombstoned Hulk Hogan 2 feet from the chair, and to this day Hogan swears that Undertaker nearly crippled him.
Brother. You caught me with it.
Like, have you ever watched that footage, Hogan? Like, you could not sell it to a 4-year-old that your head hit.
Well, he changes his story. The story, because Taker tells it too. The story was that he says that Taker had him so tight that he had no room to move, and the downward thrust hurt his neck.
You jarred me, brother.
Yeah.
Oh God, that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
Hogan's bullshit. But so we take a commercial break, and then we head into another head-scratching Jeff Jarrett. Now that's fabulous video as we see highlights of Jeff Jarrett wrestling set to the tune of Michael Jackson's Jam, which was from some basketball movie at the time. I think maybe it was a cartoon or something. I don't remember, but it was related to basketball. And now we got Jeff Jarrett out here, which he played basketball. So I guess we can somewhat connect those dots easier than we can some of the songs from the past.
I know, but good God, man, was this not when all that publicity with Michael Jackson was happening with the kids and all?
Yeah.
Like, so they could pick any country song because they have like a pattern of that they want. And he's like, well, I've seen Michael Jackson in the news a lot.
I didn't stick around and watch the story. I was kind of flipping through the channels, but they was talking about him. Meanwhile, Master Terror's over like,
damn it. No, that's what I was gonna say, Gene. I was gonna like Master Terror's over there. That guy's a good man.
I love that dude's music, man.
But he's over whistling Beat It while they're talking about it.
I'll be honest with you though, when I was a kid, this song was over with me, man. because we would play basketball and we would lower the goal because we were fat kids that couldn't dunk. And we'd be out there dunking on a 6-foot goal.
Dude, we even got my granddad one day to back the truck up because I couldn't lower my goal. And we were jumping off the fucking tailgate and doing dunks and stuff.
But I remember singing this song, Jam, you just. My grandma was like, good Lord. Good Lord.
I never heard that George Strait song.
Grandmother's over there looking out the door like, this is the worst and one video ever. Like, bunch of white kids trying to dunk. I wish we had footage of that. I wish I would have recorded that. That'd been a great video to put up on the channel.
That's that 2 inch vertical.
Bunch of white kids.
And we'd miss. That was the fucked up part, Gene. We'd miss sometimes.
Oh, that's fun for sure. So we get highlights to that song with, you know, the That's Fabulous lines interspersed from different people, Mark Miller and different ones. Of course, Minnesota Fats screws it up and says, that was fabulous.
Dude, I've laughed so hard watching that because immediately I had a vision of somebody with an AK-47 on the other side of the camera pointed at Minnesota Fats. It looked like a hostage video.
Say the line. Just say the line, Fats.
Do you want me to hold up the newspaper while I say it? No.
That was fabulous.
His eyes were big as silver dollars, though. My God, he looked scared.
Freaking sissy. You know, back in my day, fabulous meant, hey, don't say it. Don't say it. Turn the camera off. But okay, please, Jerry Jarrett, stop with these fucking videos already. I'm not even a Jeff Jarrett hater. If people go back and listen to the early episodes of this podcast, no bigger supporters than us of Jeff Jarrett. And still this day, I'm a fan of Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah.
But my God, these are so past the point of being even, they're not even eye-rollingly amusing anymore. It's just like, God damn it, we're doing another one of these things. Are you fucking kidding me? But yes, we are. And I don't know that there's any end in sight, honestly.
Yeah. And I tell you what makes a heel in the sports world. So like for the NFL, people started hating Tom Brady. People started hating Patrick Mahomes. The reason why isn't because they win all the time. It's because everybody's telling you how great these motherfuckers are every 5 seconds. So that's where they're bordering on this territory. Yeah. It's like, let me tell you how great Jeff Jarrett is. It's like, we get it. He's good. But it's like, no, seriously. Let me tell you how great Jeff Jarrett is. Now, let me let other people tell you how great Jeff Jarrett is, set to the tune of this Michael Jackson beat. Yeah. You know, and it's like we're bordering on that. Okay, we get it. He's great. And I'm going to start hating him if you tell me that again, you know.
He's not great. He's fabulous. Get it right, Richard. Yeah, I don't know. Just the high water mark or perhaps the low point, one of the two, was the whole "We Shall Be Free" video. Like, to me, that was the most unintentionally entertaining video of them all, and you're not going to top it. Just leave it there. I mean, Jeff Jarrett ending racism by going to a school and hugging a bunch of kids and
teaching them how to spell fabulous.
And just knowing that in post editing that had to be fixed, I'm sure.
They put a Q in it, damn
it. So obviously that leads us directly into match number 3. The fabulous one, Jeff Jarrett taking on Dave Golden. So this is our second enhancement talent of the day that we haven't seen before. We've never seen Bill Vick or whatever that guy's name was. We've never seen Dave Golden. Pretty soon we'll see why. Tommy Rich immediately tries to run in and all the heels come out to stop him. So again, just like last week, when you weren't here, Richard, we just take something that we did earlier in the show and then we do it in reverse later in the show. But you know, this is your typical Jeff Jarrett squash match when all of a sudden out of nowhere, God damn it, he's back to doing the leaping DDT. Shit. We thought we had cured him of this. Thought we had moved on. We thought somebody had smartened him up. We're like, hey, man, you got to stop with that shitty DDT. But it's back with a vengeance. And so Tommy Rich, representing all of us, hits the ring, attacks Jeff Jarrett, reminding him that DDT is the shits. Don't ever do it in public again. And Jeff tries to mount a comeback. But the dog catchers hit the ring. And I've never been more of a fan of the dog catchers than when he came here. They came out here to attack Jeff after giving that DDT. And so they joined Tommy, and eventually the Spellbinder and Mike Anthony and Jeff Gaylord. And after that, the Moondogs all come out there, and we have a big debacle, and it dissipates before it turns into a one-on-one brawl again. But there it is. That's our Tommy Rich, Jeff Jarrett Brawl of the Week here on USWA Championship Wrestling. I gotta ask, Richard, how sick in the pit of your stomach did it make you to see the DDT return?
Hated it. Hated it immediately. When I saw him double over Mr. Golden there, I said, he's not going for this shitty DDT, is he? And it looks nothing. It looks like the most comfortable thing ever. Like, it doesn't look like it's harming the person at all. It just looks like somebody is gingerly helping Jeff into like a bed or something. It doesn't look painful. And like, I would have much rather see Jeff jump up and kick somebody in the face with his 2 feet as a drop kick. I'd rather see a drop toe hold than that shitty DDT. It is just terrible. I hated it as a kid. Even as a kid, I'm like, that ain't a DDT. That's some kind of weird, I don't know. It's like a reverse bulldog.
Assisted face plant.
Yeah, but it doesn't look like a DDT, and it's not good. And see, when I was a teenager, he started doing the stroke. And I was like, that's way better. Why not do something like that? But yeah.
You could have called this one the stroke for a completely different reason. It's like he went to give a DDT and he had a stroke midway through.
Yeah, his left leg goes out.
But I think you nailed it. When you said it would look like a slip and fall on ice, yeah. I think that's the best. If somebody was either blind or unable to watch the video and you had to describe it, it's like if somebody was slipping on ice and somebody just happened to be next to him falling down in front of them, because the two things seem almost unrelated the way it's executed. But
it's kind of like before the show, they were outside on the floor in the WMC5 studios, and he was trying to show somebody and he slipped. Kind of like how the DDT was invented by Jake Roberts. He had somebody in a front face lock and he fell backwards and on accident. So yeah, they were on the WMC floor. Jeff slipped because the WMC floor is like a slip and slide, and somebody was like, you need to use that as you move, Jeff. That looked good.
Oh, come on, and I'll tell him that in there. He's going to do it every week. Yeah, I would rather see the Moondogs wrestle Jack and Jerry Briscoe in a 60-minute Iron Man scientific match every week from now on than see that DDT ever again. But it's back. So
makes me want to put Jeff in a truck with Eddie Marlin and give Marlin a warm cup of milk, in a
heating pad.
In a heating pad. And nature sounds for the ride.
I want to get. We didn't get a voicemail this week, folks. Nobody called us, unfortunately. But I want to get Tommy to call the show and be like, "You need to teach your grandpappy how to drive a damn rain truck instead of worry about wrestling me."
It'd be great if we got the real.
So next up, Dave Brown is joined by Tony Adams to discuss the mixed tag team match that has been signed for Monday night. We haven't heard much out of Tony Adams or Brian Christopher. We hadn't showed any clips of them in a while, so I felt like maybe this is a good one to show everybody and bring us up to speed on where we're at in this whole Tony Adams, Brian Christopher, Miss Robin, Phantom of the Opera, love triangle, foursome, whatever the fuck's going on. Let's check this out.
The Love Connection match coming up. There's Tony Adams right here, as a matter of fact, to talk about this match. And it's going to involve Brian Christopher, Miss Robin, you, and the Phantom of the Opera. A lot of folks think they know who the Phantom of the Opera is, too. Huh?
Well, I'll tell you what, Dave, it's true. I've been taken for a fool. Brian Christopher is a low-down scum of the earth. And Miss Robin, I swear to God, we'll see how much he likes her after I rearrange her face. I'm really confident. You know why I'm confident? Because I've been speaking to Phantom of the Opera, and he has assured me of the fact that Brian Christopher is going to pay for everything that he's ever done to me. Matter of fact, I'm sorry I keep saying that. Phantom of the Opera in this oncoming match has promised me that Brian is going to pay for it.
Here's Brian right here. All right, Brian. Don't start anything
I
here.
wasn't scheduled for an interview today, but I'm sitting in the back there, and I can't listen to this peroxide blonde bimbo out here lie any longer. Why don't you tell the truth, huh? Why don't, instead of saying the Phantom, you done said it twice. Tell everybody it's Chris Adams, why don't you, huh? Where's Chris Adams, huh? I thought I beat him in a loser leave town match. He should be 1,000 miles from here right now, working at a Dairy Queen or something. And now he should come back under mask, and I guess it's all right by Eddie Marlin, huh? Did not beat him in a loser leave town match? Tell everybody it's Chris Adams, you big liar.
All I know is he's promised me that he is going to make you pay for everything that you ever did to me. Everything. From the very beginning. And I'm going to make you pay for everything. I cannot believe that you came. And with my nanny, and the whole time you were seeing him, I am going to make sure you pay for everything.
Everything we ever did to you, huh? I'll tell you what I would do to you now. I'd have slapped your little lying teeth down your throat.
No. Hasn't reality sunk in yet, Tony Adams? You couldn't keep Brian. That's what this is all about. You had to go back and get your husband.
Come on.
We'll see. We'll see.
Hey, we're not gonna
He's
settle.
not worth having.
Slap her, Adam. No, hold on.
Come on.
Save it. Don't slap her right now. We'll save it.
Hey, go, Lovey. All right. Get her out of here, Brian. Thank you.
Your day's coming, sweetheart.
Well, it'll all be settled in this match right here with
the Phantom of the Opera.
with the Phantom and you on one side of the ring and Brian and Miss Robin on the other. We've got a match.
Okay, so a lot going on there.
This cow sits gangrous because they didn't milk this dry. It's dead.
I would rather have Charlie Brown from Out of Town than the Phantom of the Opera. That's a horrible way to approach this.
Yes. Why would you pick the Phantom of the Opera? And just in case we hadn't gotten the whole wink, wink, nudge, nudge aspect of, hey, this is probably Chris Adams, we have Tony just say his name twice just to really drive it home that this is supposed to be Chris Adams under this mask. And then Brian addresses it. Brian comes out in his purple suit. Looks like that Reggie B. Fine took him to his favorite store and got him a discount on a suit or something here. Yeah, like, at one point, I don't think that was in character. When Miss Robin turns to Brian and says, "Oh, slap her," I don't think that was like the character of Miss Robin saying. I think that was like calling a spot there. I'm like, "I'll slap her, right? This seems like a time I should do that." Grabs her. Tony's like, "Hey, he's gonna make you pay for all the things you did to me." Like. That time you nearly put my eye out.
When you said it was slipped in there on accident. I am over this though.
Yeah.
Gene, I'm over this. I was starting to get tired of it a couple weeks ago, but now I'm like, all right, I'm kind of over the love triangle story. And I was telling Josh earlier, I've seen better acting on those SummerSlam 32 tapes than she was portraying there, It was just, it just feels forced now. It's like, come on, we got to get past this angle. I don't care who Brian's, what is it? I don't care who you sock it to. Like, that's where I'm getting to, I don't care anymore.
She uttered the line, "You were supposed to be my nanny and you were sleeping with him the whole time." I'm like, do you realize what you just said? You were supposed to be my nanny. You're a grown adult woman telling another adult woman that she was your nanny. There's not even a kid involved in any of this. Your nanny.
Dude, I love this shit because I get flashbacks. This is like some cheesy movie that would be on Action pay-per-view during this time period. I'm just so drawn into this. Bitch, that's my man bullshit. I'm always drawn to those situations.
Say that again.
Like a moth to a flame, dude. Like, and dude, even my dad, like he would talk all this shit about situations like this. But if you ease into the house on him just during, 11 o'clock during the daytime, he's watching Springer. You know what I mean? It's just
Well, that's exactly what this is. This is Jerry Springer. This is Vince Russo would be touching himself watching it. Now, this is wrestling, bro. That's how you do it, right? That's what we ought to be doing on Raw right there. That kind of stuff every week. Have two ladies out there. Like this.
You're slipping into Tatanka there.
Well, a little bit of Tatanka, a little bit of Tatanka Russo over here. Miss Robin never needed to touch a mic. Like Tony Adams was not good on the mic. She was hot enough to overcome it. Miss Robin's not. Like she just didn't need to be talking. Like I don't know. If you guys are wanting this to go away, you're probably going to be in luck, but we'll get there eventually.
Does Miss Robin not have like a mom voice? Let me tell you something there, big guy. You know, like I looked at Josh, I was like, she sounds like a mother. Like
it's funny because like the first round of this with the Mike Anthony thing and everything, we talked about how like, okay, this is pretty good. But it went off the rails very quickly. I felt like the whole Tony seeing the picture and turning against them kind of this. I mean, not like it needed to be drug out longer, but just the execution of it was just poor. It was just like she was clueless the first week, and then this week she gets one little glimpse of it, and she just jumps right to slapping Brian, and we're off and running. And by this week, the third week or fourth week, whatever this is, we're already like, yeah, I'm over this. But stick around when we get to this week's results, and we'll talk a little more about that. Match number 4, the unified champion Tatanka takes on Freezer Thompson. We hadn't seen Freezer around a lot this year. We've seen him one other time. But I tell you what, I would have bet the farm that we weren't going to see Tatanka do his finisher on Freezer, but by God, he snatched him up like nothing, dropped him, got the win. So kudos to Tatanka.
And it looked like Freezer was suffering this whole time. I mean, like, because it's unnatural to see guys that big take moves like that. You know what I mean? Like, that's something for even a 250 pounder is like, that's a big guy taking these kind of moves in this Memphis ring.
If you go back and watch that, if you look, because you can see on camera that he's facing the camera, you can actually see the look on Freezer Thompson's face, like, he really got me up here. Like, I think when Tatanka's like, all right, then I'll give you my finish. And he's like, if you can get me up, go ahead. And Tatanka's like, I'll get you fat ass up, don't worry about it. He's like, yeah, right. He snatched him up, he got him up there, and he planted his ass. So good stuff.
Josh said he looked like he was suffering the whole time, and it made me think of like just a fictitious point where like Dave would go, Corey, Freezer Thompson's been battling gout all week.
Oh, Dave has a diabetes in there.
He knows he's not supposed to eat apple pie, but he loves apple pie. And it just sets that gout right off, Corey.
He's lucky to still have his feet in there, Dave. I know he got that diabetes. So moving on, as I realized that the voice I attributed to Freezer might be troublesome. We get a promo from Jarrett and Lawler. They promote softball and etc. Their matches for Monday night, but mostly softball as far as Lawler's concerned. And I was getting worried. We hadn't heard much about it recently, but then again, we are in September. Then we get a promo from Tatanka and Tommy Rich as Tommy manages to remind us once again that Tatanka is the chief, but he didn't tell us that he's a real Indian. But we know that, right? Even though he sounds Italian at times.
Swear to God, he's a real Indian.
He's a shoot Indian.
That's how you know when a Southerner's lying, by the way, Gene. They go, I swear to God.
I mean, this is the ultimate irony, right? Chief Jay Strongo was a guy named Jay Scarpa, who was Italian playing an Indian. Chris Chavis is a real Indian playing an Indian, but he sounds Italian. So what the hell is going on?
WWE just couldn't get it right, could they? If they could have just melded those two together, they would have had the perfect Indian, right?
It would have been ironic if you'd had Chief Jay play an Indian, and then years later, Tatanka comes in playing like a Sopranos character. Completely ignore that he's Native American. Let's take our final podcast commercial break, and when we return, we'll hear what the card's going to be for Monday night.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling. the podcast that's based on the old school, but can still help you find the good stuff from today. Jimmy Street and the Plastic Sheik, Jared, are the undisputed tag team champions of the wrestling podcast world. From thought-provoking topics to superstar interviews to action figure expertise. This team does it all. And all they ask is, give me back my pro wrestling! Every other Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey guys, this is Wolfie D from PG-13. Check out my podcast, Live and in Color with Wolfie D, every Monday at noon. We're talking Memphis, we're talking ECW, WCW, WWF, everywhere that I've been. We even have some great guests, some Hall of Famers on the show with us. Every Monday at noon, Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
This is Wrestling Nostalgia, the podcast that dives into wrestling history. Hey, wrestling fans, I'm Dave Dynasty, and if you enjoy podcasts that are knowledgeable and history-driven, then Wrestling Nostalgia is for you. With great guests and fun interviews, there are over 200 episodes in our archives. We chat with several first-time guests and often cover topics not discussed on other podcasts. Look up Wrestling Nostalgia on your favorite podcast platform and visit all of our links at linktree/WrestlePod. That is linktr.ee/RASSLEPOD. And remember, wherever you go, whatever you do, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.
So I found it interesting when I was watching this show, paying attention to these when they're, breaking up the potential fights between Jarrett and Tommy Rich. We see Spellbinders here and dressed out to wrestle. We see Mike Anthony's here. He's dressed out to wrestle. We see the Rock and Roll Phantom is here. He's dressed out to wrestle. None of those guys wrestled on this show. They didn't even do a promo. They didn't make an appearance other than coming out to break up this fight. So apparently either something ran long and they weren't able to have matches, or they actually had these guys come all the way to Memphis to the studio, get completely dressed out to wrestle, and all they did was come out there to break up 2 run-ins, which is...
Dave alludes to it at the end of the show.
Okay. I must have cut it off before then. So
well, now you know why Danny was just like, the hell with this. I've got too much
stuff. I painted this fucking star on my face 3 weeks in a row.
No.
I paint a star on my face. Somebody's getting pile driven on their head.
Y'all gonna see me driving in that IROC and just my tail lights. That's all you gonna see.
You keep fucking with me, I'm gonna put them Zubaz back on. Whoop everybody's ass.
Well, we'll take a look at the card, and then we'll have Josh tell us because apparently I missed the part where Dave addressed that, and so now Brian Trammell's not only going to be cussing Richard for not watching every minute of the show, he's going to be cussing me as well. So
you're in for it, Gene. He's going to come for you.
I'm now on the shit list for you. Here we go.
Opening match of the night. Seen the Missouri Tiger out here a couple of times today helping out. Jeff Gaylord, big and strong. He'll be going against Colin Scotts, as a couple of former football players will be going at each other here in the wrestling ring. That should be a very, very interesting match to see. Following that, you got Bull Payne. That's right. You wrestling fans, I think, probably know Bull Payne. Bull Payne will be going against the Spellbinder in a single match. Mike Anthony, fine-looking young wrestler, will be going against J.C. Ice. Wolfie D will be over in the corner of J.C. Ice, but this is a single match, not tag team. Mike Anthony against J.C. Ice. Go Beware, the Birdman, will be going against Rock and Roll Phantom. And then we'll follow that with a USWA Ladies title match. Ms. Texas will be going against Samantha Payne. And this one, the Love Connection match. Well, we'll have more to say about this a little bit later on. The Phantom, who showed up a couple of weeks ago when I was not here that particular day, but I have heard all about it. A lot of people have their suspicions of exactly who that might be. The Phantom and Tony Adams will be going against Brian Christopher and Miss Robin. Then it's going to be that Survivor Series match. And again, this has been approved.
Oh, look out for this, boy.
USWA says, yep, we'll sanction it. Jerry Lawler, Jeff Jarrett, the Moondogs, Richard Lee will be over there with them. Tatanka, Tommy Rich, and the Dog Catchers with Boss Paul over in their corner. You got yourself here an 8-man tag team match, but remember, the titles are also going to be on the line. So, if Jeff Jarrett can pin Tommy Rich, Jeff will regain the U.S. heavyweight title. If one of the Moondogs can pin one of the dog catchers, they will become USWA Tag Champions. And if the King can pin Tatanka, he will regain the unified title.
Lawler.
Did I miss something? When did we start calling former referee Paul Neighbors Boss Paul? Is that like a play on Boss Hog?
Yes,
that's what we were wondering. I was like, what the hell is that? Then we saw Lawler come out there in his blouse. Really got to let these delts breathe in this bad boy.
Boss Paul. Well, that's fun. Okay, so tell us, Josh, what did we miss as far as why we didn't see those guys wrestle?
So at the end of the show, like when Dave runs, I think he goes over the card results again. He says that we were supposed to have a 4-on-4 8-man competition, but we just ran long. We ran out of time. And then he keeps going with the read or whatever.
Okay. That's why when I saw he was about to go over the card and I saw how much time was left from the show, I'm like, all right, that's the end of it. And I cut it off. So, all right. Well, that makes sense then. Boy, the Spellbinder had to be pissed because I'm sure it takes time to paint all that shit on your face to not. I'm sure they probably did it for the studio audience, maybe just for shits and giggles, but still, that would have to suck. But.
So just watching this, them going through, I had this epiphany. So I think I figured out who the Phantom of the Opera is. It's not Chris Adams. Like that would be obvious. It's Dave Brown, straight up, because he knew everything that happened, and he taunted Brian. Even during that promo where he came back, he was like, "Yeah, I heard all about what the Phantom did," and blah 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 blah. And Brian super pissed him off a few weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
So and Miss Tony Adams, she's all but like trying to imply that it's Chris Adams. That's what she wants you to think. She's a manipulative female.
Ooh.
And it's really Dave Brown because he's got that super heat with Brian Christopher.
And we never actually saw the Phantom in person, in the flesh, except the one time when Dave Brown wasn't there.
And he made sure to say that at least 3-4 times the episode came back. Now, I wasn't here, but I heard all about it. Sure you did, Dave.
Wow. All right. Well, look at Josh over here cracking the case. That's fun. Plays out that way. So guys, it's time to answer the questions.
The thing where a kid comes up to you and goes, "Look how strong I am," and you went, "Yeah, you are. Look at that. Look at that muscle."
He's probably right. That's probably where this is all headed, quite frankly, because that definitely wasn't Chris Adams in that get up the other week. So, and it's probably like Dave had always been like a fan of the Phantom of the Opera and was like, "I really want to do this." And they're like, all right, can't be worse than the rest of the shit we're doing. Go ahead.
How good at you super kicking? Because this character needs.
Dave, if you could be a wrestler, what would your gimmick be? I'd be the Phantom of the Opera.
Phantom of the Opera.
Does it not sound like something Dave would pick too, though? The Phantom of the. He seems like a Phantom of the Opera fan.
He does. Of all the guys on the show, he seems like he would be. I can't see Corey pulling that one off. But.
He appreciates fine art. I seen him at a Van Gogh exhibit a few years back.
There you go. Now we got to try to get him on a show or something to try to. I wish y'all would have had this theory before y'all interviewed him a few years ago, so you could have tested that out. I would love to just heard his voice when you like, "Hey Dave, well, I figured something out here." Kayfabe, you little bastard. Anyway,
my 15 minutes are up, pal.
Well, gotta go, bro. She ain't go out.
Unless you're gonna PayPal me some money, this is done. All right, so here we go. What was your least favorite part of today's show?
Moondogs again. Like, I can't beat that drum enough. I'm just so over it. I don't want the Moondogs to be there anymore. And I don't care about their match with the dog catchers. I feel like you have to have the Moondogs to have the dog catchers, and that makes me hate the Moondogs even more. So, but yeah, that would be my least favorite part about this show.
I feel guilty, like having to pick this as my least favorite part, but because I did put it over as being a continuation of things, and that's what we were starving for, is like solid feuds. And I know they're just trying to continue it and keep the heat going and stuff, but we've got to get more creative with the Jeff Jarrett and Tommy Rich thing. Like, I feel like we spent last week, we did, run in after run. We're keeping them separated now. We can't. We're trying so hard, but they're like dogs. They're trying to get at each other. Okay, that's one episode. We're good. Today should have been presented in another way. I don't know which fucking way, but I don't run a television company, but I know I don't like seeing that shit 2 weeks in a row, because I feel like we could have done at least something different. But, it was that same type of deal, just like last week. The problem that we had with Lawler and Jeff Jarrett mirroring each other's interaction with neighbors. It's almost like whoever is organizing this shit, if it's anybody, and we've thought maybe it's one guy or whatever, maybe this guy, but they're just checking boxes. It's like, okay, we'll just do this again. I can't think of anything.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's almost like a swerve, bro. I'm going to say I like it at the beginning, and then I'm going to shit all over it at the end. But, I mean, I can't argue your point. And obviously, I don't enjoy the Moondog segments, but for once, we're all three going to have three separate answers, because for me, as far as the one segment of this show that I could just completely do without, it's the whole Tony Adams, Brian Christopher, Miss Robin debacle. I just hate that whole Phantom of the Opera aspect of it. Like, it's so out of left field and pointless. And it's like, you left your husband, like, in theory, if we're taking all this at face value and believing all this shit, that you left your husband, you came in as a gift from Scotty Flamingo to Brian Christopher, and then your husband came to try to get you back, and you sort of sided with Brian and Christopher, but then sometimes it seemed you didn't. But now, for your ultimate revenge is going to be your husband coming in to take out the guy that you left him for, and he looks like just a fucking cuck moron in the end, dressed like the Phantom of the Opera. Like, could Chris Adams come out of this whole deal looking any worse than he has, if this is supposed to really be Chris Adams, or it turns out to really be Chris Adams? The Dave Brown scenario would be the would be the best case scenario for this character. It's the only way a Phantom of the Opera character even makes sense right here. It's so weird. But one other thing I do want to say, because I really hadn't gave this any thought till Richard just said this, but can you imagine if you were just a wrestling fan who's cruising around on YouTube and you're wanting to watch a show, and you see a tag team called the Dog Catchers come out, and the Moondogs either aren't on the show or you tune in after they've already been on there, and you're trying to figure out who thought it was a good idea to have a gimmick called the Dog Catchers with no context of the Moondogs. You're right. Yeah, there really are no dog catchers, or no excuse for dog catchers without the Moondogs. So, good call on that.
Yeah. We got to figure out how to book Junkyard Dog here quick.
Well, no, if they keep the dog catchers around, that keeps the Moondogs away. It's like you're taking care of the problem before it's a problem.
It's like one day after the net incident, it's like, well, we caught them. Our job here is done. We're gonna go ahead and retire.
Yeah. But yeah, there's no room to bring those characters to another territory. Like, yeah, we want to bring the dog catchers in. Oh, the Moondogs there? No. You got JYD there? No, we just like the gimmick. I think it's cool.
They were the champions.
So this may be a little tougher, but what was your favorite part of today's show?
I was really into the Vince McMahon segment. It was entertaining. It gave us a look at the future, basically, and knowing what we know now, it was really cool to see that. But even as a kid, it was really cool to have seen that. You know what I mean? Like, it would shock you as a kid to see it, but now knowing what we know about Vince, it's really cool to see. Like, this was the genesis of what was about to happen. So my favorite part was the Vince McMahon promo at the beginning.
Mine's heel Tatanka. Like I said, he looked extremely comfortable being that guy, and he looked like he was having fun just poking at the crowd constantly. And he even got that way during the match. And it was almost to the point where I thought he was almost going to get into a fight with that big dude in the front row, because he got out of the ring, walked right over towards him, and the big guy stepped towards him, and he kind of, just stayed there. He stood there, but he was like, this might be a problem. Then he gets back into the ring and talks some more shit. But yeah, I don't know that I've ever seen at that point a heel Indian character. Like, I'm struggling to think of one at that point. So it was extremely different, especially the way WWF put him over at the time. They promo video of him praying by the fire and sending smoke signals and dressed up in that white Indian uniform, just like super babyface shit. And then to see him
scalping someone
totally opposite. That's if he would have stayed
classic
there long enough.
Move.
Yeah. Lawler would have put that in a video trying to, the week before he'd get the title back. But yeah, heel Tatanka, my favorite by far.
I'll co-sign both of those answers.
Shooting New Yorkers with arrows and shit. Doom, 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 doom.
That damn song. I do have to say, I did wonder watching that promo and even his match with Freezer Thompson if perhaps, I'm sure Vince watched these tapes of his guys in Memphis at some point. If seeing how well Tatanka seemed to take to this kind of put it in the back of his mind, like, well, at some point we might turn him heel, pal, or if that was even a thought. Because like you said, there'd never been heel Indian characters. So did that plant the seed for Vince of like, hey, that could work. We might could go to this in the future, because it was still another year before we get there or so.
Yeah, I think it was early 95 or something.
Yeah, I want to say it was I can't remember if it was SummerSlam 94 or 95. It had to be 94 because Luger was gone by 95. He was on Nitro like September of 95.
Okay.
So that would have been like SummerSlam 94. So about a year from now, we're going to see heel Tatanka in the WWF. Okay,
I just had a funny thought of Jerry Jarrett giving all the women in the back guns in case that Tatanka goes crazy. Like on the old westerns when they give the women the guns in case the Indians took over so they could shoot themselves.
Don't you let them get my horse, Sally.
Come on, Jay, that's racist. He ain't black, he's an Indian.
They do have tomahawks now.
Yeah, that would be funny too. It's like Corey and them calling the match, and oh God, Lord, Dave, he done tomahawked that fan in the front row.
Like that's why Dave had to conduct that interview. He come walking out the tomahawk. Corey's like, "Fuck a bunch of that." I ain't interviewing him. So if this was actually 1993, would you guys be buying a ticket to see Monday night's card based on what we just heard?
I probably would skip this week, to be honest with you. I saw Tatanka last week doing this Survivor Series, does nothing. As a kid, I wasn't really huge on the Survivor Series matches because they did so many of them in a show. They do 14 of them, and you're like, all right, I'm over it. So yeah, as a kid, I probably wouldn't have wanted to go as a kid, I would have wanted to go to every wrestling show, but, as an adult, looking at it now, probably skipping this week, maybe saving my money up for next week.
Yeah. I mean, as intrigued as I am about the idea that Moondog Cujo could potentially become the unified world champion. What I mean? I'm just going to sit this week out. I've went so many weeks in a row, and this is just my reset mode, my reset point, I think.
Oh, man.
I would probably sit this one out too, possibly. But I will say, I actually loved the Survivor Series as a kid because of the Survivor Series was the only time of the year that you saw certain people interact, that they would be forced into, like Bad News Brown teaming with other heels and odd combinations of baby faces. And I don't know, as a kid, I always found that fascinating to see some of these people cross paths in Survivor Series matches that otherwise they never would. So I don't know. I like that. That would have probably been the only thing that would have made me potentially want to go, is to see a Survivor Series match in person, but then looking at the people involved, be like, well, maybe not.
What a time for Cujo to go into business for himself. I've won all the belts. I've won all the belts.
I'm the Grand Slam champion of the USWA. People are like, yeah, and
comes out with slicked back hair, talking like Tatanka.
That's Mr. Cujo to you, Dave Brown. It was me. I was the Phantom of the Opera, Dave, not you.
But you said something that was actually why I always liked Battle Bowl and the Lethal Lottery. It was because you got those weird combinations that you wouldn't normally see. So
yeah. I mean, where else would you see Jushin Thunder Liger teaming up with Scott and Norton, or Mike Graham and Ice Train or some shit. So yeah,
wasn't it Abby and Brian Pillman?
Abby and Brian Pillman.
It was.
Who immediately turned on his own partner because he didn't understand the concept of partners.
I love that one.
Fair, which puts the gimmick over.
Show. Let's watch that next time.
Coming soon to the watch along on Patreon only, because we can't play Battle Bowl over YouTube. We can definitely do it on Patreon. You guys, actually, I should mix you guys with my buddy Bob Anderson, because he has been twisting my arm for like almost a year now, wanting to do a watch along with Battle Bowl, and I've fought it every step of the way. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to sign on to StreamYard, put you two and Bob Anderson together, and then I'll get up and leave the room, and you guys can watch fucking Battle Bowl.
You just have a good time.
Have a good time.
You set you an alarm for 2 hours and wander back to the computer.
Be like, Jesus, is it over? So September 20th, 1993 at the Mid-South Coliseum, drawing a house of We Don't Know. I looked everywhere I could find online. Nobody had the crowd for this one. I really would have been interested to see how this drew, because we had about 1,000 people last week. In the opening match, Colin Scotts beat Jeff Gaylord in what I can only assume was probably a 5-star classic, stellar professional wrestling match.
And they're both baby faces, right?
And yeah.
So that makes it even harder to because if you have the heel babyface gimmick, you kind of have like some kind of dynamic to draw around. Now you got two baby faces trying to work a match that.
Well, no. This is something. It's the clash of the accomplishment. On one side, you got a 10-minute promo worth of accomplishments on Jeff Gaylord, and then Colin Scotts, he's got all that NFL, and he was a Broadway singer or some shit, right?
Perhaps this was just a debate rather than a wrestling match. They just stood in the ring and spouted off their accomplishment. The thing is, I understand that Tony Falk probably could eventually lead Colin Scotts through a decent match, and even Reggie B. Fine probably could bump around and make Colin Scotts look like something. But what the hell why would you put Jeff Gaylord in there with somebody this green who's only like 5 matches into his entire career, unless it was just like, all right, let's see what he's got. And then after the match, like, that ain't it. Vince, you better cut bait on this one, pal. That's a lost cause. But anyway, as far as I know, we won't be seeing any highlights of that match in upcoming weeks anywhere ever. In the second match, this one disappoints me. Bull Payne defeated the Spellbinder. Third match, Mike Anthony beat JC Ice via disqualification, which is interesting because originally this was booked to be Mike Anthony versus Wolfie D with JC Ice in the corner. So don't know what happened there. Coco Beware defeated the Rock and Roll Phantom. USWA Women's Champion Miss Texas beat Samantha Payne. Now, I love how we just trot this ladies title out just intermittently as like, hey, that woman that we booked Miss Texas against is actually somewhat of a credible wrestler. Let's call it a title match, because it only gets mentioned because I don't think she's had a ladies title match since Sherry was here, and I think Sherry beat her for the title, and I don't remember Miss Texas winning it back. She may have. I'm not saying I would have committed that to memory, but
have we seen a title?
We haven't seen a belt, but we've seen a match called a title match that Sherry won.
It's a title and title only.
Title on paper.
Yeah, you didn't win a belt. You won a championship.
You won a title.
Yeah, you literally just have the title of women's champion for what it's worth. And has anybody noticed we ain't seen the Black Pussycat around in a couple of weeks? We caught a glimpse. I won't play the clip, but anyway. And then in the main event, Survivor Series match, Jerry Lawler, Jeff Jarrett, Moondogs, Spike, and Cujo defeated Tatanka, Tommy Rich, and the Dog Catchers in the convoluted Survivor Series Elimination Championship match. And if the results are right, which we have seen the results be misquoted here, but according to this, Jerry Lawler pinned Tatanka to regain the title, which completely throws out my theory of why we even had this match to start with. So, all right, Lawler pinned Tatanka. We'll see if that is actually the case on next week's highlights. But anyway, Jerry Lawler has regained the unified, or as Vince McMahon referred to it, we didn't mention this earlier, the United title from Tatanka. Did you guys notice anything missing from that card?
I mean, just the obvious. No Master of Terra, no American Eagle mentioned.
Of a match that we announced.
Did the Jeff match take place?
No Wildfire?
No, they were all in the Survivor Series.
Oh, that's right. That's
shit,
right.
Yeah. I don't know.
Don't know, yeah.
Where was the mixed tag team match with Brian Christopher and Miss Robin versus Tony Adams and the Phantom of the Opera?
Huh.
So I went to the Wrestling Observer newsletter to see what they had about it, and it says Brian Christopher ended up missing several dates over recent weeks because of a health problem he had, where an issue with his lungs that was resulting in him coughing up blood.
Wow.
On the September 20th card, where they had the advertised Phantom of the Opera, which was hinted at being Chris Adams and Tony Adams versus Brian Christopher and Miss Robin match. The match did not take place, although they did not announce that Brian couldn't wrestle or that the Phantom of the Opera wasn't there. They simply gave the explanation to the fans that Brian Christopher and Tony Adams had worked out their differences and were now canceling the match.
Wow.
Truth be told, the reason the match didn't take place is because Miss Robin, aka Vivacious Veronica, on other independent shows, quit prior to the show and left the territory. And so they decided, since Tony Adams didn't have an opponent and they were unsure about the Phantom of the Opera, whatever that means exactly, they decided to call off the match and just kill the entire Brian Christopher and Tony Adams feud altogether.
So we need to go back and look at September 20th, 1993, if Memphis had any severe storm warnings or anything, because that meant Dave would have been in front of the camera. That's why the Phantom didn't show up.
Now, here's a question. So they basically did it like that old Simpsons episode where the dog was flying off into space, and they did it was like a little cartoon. It's like, I've got to go. My planet needs me.
Yeah.
The ship blew up and everyone died.
Hey, you remember all that stuff we did last 2 weeks? Just forget about all that. Just we're going to go back to 4 weeks ago before Miss Robin got here, and now Brian. I mean, after everything's gone on recently, how do you just say Brian and Tony Adams made up and now they're back together?
Right.
Next week should be interesting how they make that convoluted shit somehow make sense. The other note. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say, but I mean, this is hitting home for a lot of Southerners. Like, how many times do you have that guy that's like, man, my old lady's crazy. I got my new old lady slap her around out in the front yard. And then the next week you see him and he's with the woman that got slapped around. He's like, oh, she was just going through some stuff. And I found out that bitch I was with was cheating and stealing from me. It was weird.
So then my wife whooped her ass.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is typical Southern stuff.
Yeah, this may be the most reality-based angle that they have going on, if we're honest with ourselves. The only other USWA note of interest from that edition of the Observer said the latest word we're getting is Vince McMahon was scheduled to appear. Well, excuse me. Vince McMahon is scheduled to appear live at the Mid-South Coliseum again on October 4th. We were told that McMahon was to appear alongside Lex Luger on September 20th originally, but Luger is still suffering from injury, and when Luger had to cancel off the card, McMahon no longer had a reason to be there. So I don't know if Vince McMahon. I don't think Vince McMahon shows up next week's card either. But then again, I don't know. I haven't looked at next week's show. But just remembering back in history, I don't remember McMahon showing back up in Memphis again, or at least not this soon. But that's why we all got to tune in next week to find out, folks, and see exactly what happens in the next chapter of the Vince McMahon, Jerry Lawler USWA story. So there you have it. Jerry Lawler's unified champion once again. All is right with the world. I just wish we knew how many people was there to see it. I'm guessing not a whole lot, but that's purely speculation, right?
Yeah. I'm guessing there's a reason why that number didn't get out.
Tell nobody how many people was here. Keep your mouth shut.
They looked at all 7 of them like, y'all better not say nothing about this.
All right. As we wrap up this week's show, make sure we didn't get a call this week, so make sure you give a call to 256 Egg Iron. Leave us a voicemail. Tell us what you think about the show, good, bad, or indifferent. If you can do an impression, call in, leave us a message. As you've seen, we'll probably play it on the show and make an angle out of it or something. Who knows?
Such a ridiculous number.
Subscribe. Hey, you're the one that discovered that. Okay, we didn't make the number. We didn't request it. Hey, can you guys give us 256 Egg Iron? That would be a really cool number for us to have and have to say on the show every week. But it is easier to remember than numbers. I will give you that. There's a chance somebody will be sitting around later with their phone going, hey, I think I'm going to call that USWA show. What's the number? I don't know. It's something like, what is it? Eggplant or something? I don't know. It's something to do with an egg. I know that.
It has nothing to do with wrestling or
No, it has nothing to do with anything for that matter. But please make sure you subscribe, rate, and review the show. Make sure you check out P3 Radio and see what kind of shenanigans the guys are up to this week. Also, check out our friend Brian Trammell over at stspod.club. And as always, check out all the great shows and other content from WrestleCopia.com. And check out DougGilbertPodcast.com for everything related to Doug and Tommy's Dangerous Conversations podcast. And for everything related to this podcast, you can check out USWAPodcast.com. And there is a link there. We do have a new t-shirt store up back on TeePublic. Our other one got taken down, but we got a new one up. It's back in business. It's not the same link, so you can get it through the USWAPodcast.com link. Guys, anything else before we check out here?
I think we're good, Gino.
Yep. All right, folks. Make sure you join us next week. Also, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/retro wrestling review, and you can check out our hot mic show, which is the pre and post show to this. I don't know what's wrong with Richard. We'll check afterwards. Which is the pre and post show to this show. And on this week's episode of Hot Mics, we're going to be discussing the Elimination Chamber from over the weekend. So it should be fun. We'll catch you next week for another episode of the Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast.